So if let's say we talk about reference letter or onboarding or any business process in this case, if the business process, let's say you have one default definition of business process. Okay. So let me open that business process. Okay, so this is what we did earlier. Okay. Now imagine another list of items that are here. For example, the specific South Africa policy agreement that I remember because I worked on it. Costa Rica, separate task for Costa Rica IDs, and let's see, you have specific regional specific items on the list. I cannot remember a lot of them on top of my head. Right. So would you continue to work on your default definition and continue to add those steps, or would you rather take a rule-based approach where you can make a copy of your default definition and only make it specific to that region? So LATAM is your Latin America region, which covers Costa Rica, Mexico, all those areas, and they have a different onboarding or reference letter requirements. So would you continue to work on your default definition and just increase the number of steps? And every time you add another step, let's say you just added a Costa Rica ID step, your company just opened an office in Costa Rica and in South Africa as well, and you're adding steps. You're enabling onboarding for those countries, as and when your company opens up, your company expands, right? So one way is, I won't say the one way, the recommended way is to go with the default definition. You add steps for onboarding and enable it for those countries. But if your onboarding process is already very exhaustive, it already has so many steps in it, would you rather continue to do? Because you will spend more time in testing your business process rather than doing the development and getting the work done. So if you add this step for South Africa policy agreement, you will have to create some new hire, some dummy data, test it against all these every single time. You will have to create US hires, you will have to create hires for other countries. Let's say, Canada has a different way of doing payment elections, right? You add for Canada, you still have to test for all the other steps, which takes a lot of time in case your business process becomes very lengthy. So we break it down and we go regional. And that is when we use rule-based. And like I said, and you already know that out of 100 processes, maybe 5 or 10 are there which might need that kind of setup. And only if your organization is, global in nature, if your organization just have one office setup and not a big organization, I think you won't even need rule-based. All right. So today we start with reporting, which is again a very critical part of Workday. It is not considered as a core principle. The last core principle or the core pillar we did was business process. Okay, so we covered starting with organizations, staffing model, jobs and positions, then moving on with more hands-on topics like compensation, security, and business process. So these are your 6 core pillars. Make sure you put them in your resumes, you put them on your LinkedIn's, that you know these topics. Okay. And eventually, when you start your work in a company, you will get to apply these concepts on real time. And you will have ample of time to do a lot of testing because you will get access to their test, your company's test environment, where you won't have these kind of limitations that we have here, like we cannot hire people, we cannot create security groups. And you will always have access to these recordings, I think, for about 12 months. So this is a good amount of time for you to come back, look at the recordings, and apply those principles in your real-time job. Okay. So today we'll start with Workday reporting, which is then followed by your EIB. So these are the last two topics that we have left in the course. Okay, and today we'll go over a little bit of theory on it because reporting out of all the topics that we have done, second. So out of all the core pillars that we have covered, out of all the topics that we have discussed, the last two topics are the ones which are more learned in real time than in any session, because one requirement for a report can be done in 100 different ways. Because based on at what level of reporting expertise you are at, you will build the report accordingly. If we take a simple example of creating a new hire report, it can be created 100 different ways. That depends on what level of expertise you have in reporting. And reporting is very, very vast. There are a lot of concepts here, which takes time to understand, which takes time. See, one thing about reporting is you have to first understand the concept. The other thing is you will realize the concepts later in your experience. Oh, this is what that meant. Right now, it might not, you won't be able to connect what that is. But trust me, it's a process. As in, when you work on reports in real time, you'll get a better understanding. Okay, this is how it is done. Okay, so, but we'll give all the information on what Workday reporting is, how it works, how to create a report, how to work with a report. But the diverse nature of permutation and combinations that comes with a report, that is something that can only be experienced at a real time. Okay, so today we'll mostly be writing notes, doing some visuals here. Okay, so first I'll start with the visual here. Okay, so Workday reporting, there are two categories of reports. One are the standard reports. Okay, now these standard reports Workday deliver. We cannot create them. These standard reports are Workday delivered in the so these are Workday delivered, non-editable. You cannot edit them. The ones that are Workday delivered. So there is a report, an existing report that is again delivered by what they call as Workday standard. It gives you a list of all the reports. If I don't select any category, it will take a lot of time and will give you all the reports that are Workday delivered. I'll just select some of the common ones, which is staffing, which is again a big area in the system. So you can run the task Workday standard reports to get a list of it. And this is a very good starting point for anyone who's trying to learn Workday reports. When I started my journey as a consultant, I ran this report every single day, picked up a report and observed what the output is, how it works. So as you can see, there's only 113 reports in just these two. Now imagine there are about 400 to 500 different areas in the system, different reporting categories in the system. And imagine the length of the volume of reports that Workday has given to you. Okay, so these are some of the reports. Now, within this category, there are two types. One is your report writer, and the other one is your expressor. You must have seen this, heard about this in the tenant when we were doing Workday security. So we did that And I told you that we'll talk more about it when we do the Workday reportings. Okay. So this is actually a type of standard reports. Again, standard reports, Workday deliver. Now let's see the difference. Now with Espresso, again, so please, I won't write, just keep it in mind that these all are also Workday deliver. And these all are also non-editable. So those two are already written on the top, those two are common in it. You cannot copy this. You cannot schedule this. You cannot share. But in case of a report writer, you can copy, you can schedule, you can share, then copy version. So that are the primary difference between an Espresso and a report writer. So Espresso has to be used as is. If you have a requirement and there is a report in the system which has everything that you need, just run that, because there are nothing you can do with it except for running. It might ask you for some parameters. Let's say you're running a new hire report. It might ask you for a date range. You can give that and it will provide you the output accordingly. But in case of a report writer type, you can copy that, you can schedule that, and you can share the one version which you just copied. And when you copy a standard report, okay, it automatically creates a custom report. But before we do that, if you see something, there's type defined for every report. You can see here report type. See schedulable? Yes. Schedule means that you can schedule the reports on a particular cadence based on whoever requested. So let's say if you have a executive who needs to see their employee's birthday anniversaries in upcoming, schedule that report to be delivered to that particular executive, at the last day of the month or the first week of that month. And if I scroll down, you will also see a type Espresso. And in this, the schedulable column is blank, which means that you cannot schedule them. You can only run them as is. Right. So let's do a quick running of these reports. Like I said, it might ask you for some prompts. These are prompts. Prompt means it prompts the user for an input value. So it might not have any value, or it may have some values. No, it does have. You can select your organizations which you created during your practice, but it won't have any output because we cannot hire anyone. So you can see position FT, which is your position full-time equivalent organizations, and these are your subordinates. How many total FTEs you have, how many were filled, how many unfilled, how many available, so on and so forth. So if you have certain requirements which fulfills through this report, then yeah, definitely go ahead and use it. But if you have a requirement which is not catered to an Espresso report, you first look for a standard report. Oh, sorry, you first look for a report writer type. For example, let's try to run this report. And if you notice something, the FTE report does not have a related actions button. Only this one has, because this is organization. This is not for the report. You can see this is supervisor. For report, I cannot do anything. But when I run a report writer type, oh, this is a report of different. Uh, so here, let's say though I'm not getting any results, that's okay. I do have a related actions button. When I click on it, it tells me that this is a standard report. And I have these options. I can make a copy. I can run it again with different input values. I can schedule this. Now, when I make a copy, it transforms from the category of standard to custom. But there are these inherent report types like matrix. So even though your standard reports, okay, are categorized in two parts, one is report writer and one is espresso, right? You will never see on a report that it is of type report writer. Ideally, the types of the reports are something like this: matrix, advanced, composite, trending, so on and so forth. But we really don't worry about it when we are working with standard reports because we anyway very, very rarely use them. The majority of the requirements that you receive in real time, we have to work with custom reports. Okay. So now when I'm making a copy, you can see on the top, copy standard report to custom. Now when I create that version, I can edit that. I'm in the edit mode. I can use these things, which we'll come to this later. I can make changes to it. I can add and remove things and save it as per my requirements. So you have a standard category, then you have two different versions or two different types. One is report writer and the other one is espresso. Now the next we have is type custom. Custom, I'm writing down the different types in the percentage of usage. I think there are a few more that goes in the list. So within custom, we have these different types of reports. Advanced is what we learn because that is very much expected of a Workday consultant. Even if you are a dedicated Workday reporting consultant, majority of the time you work with advanced because that caters to 95% of our requirements. If your requirements are very specific to your numerical data, some visualizations, then we go to other types like matrix and composite. So this is what we learn. Though the best way to, I won't say the best way, the recommended way to create a report is to make a copy from an existing report. So let's say your manager or some manager requested their time off data for all the workers since this is a holiday season coming up. So one of the managers just requested a detailed time off report of the next 3 months, how it looks like. So that manager can, allocate the work accordingly and get the things done. So he or she wants to be very, proactive in getting the work done even during the holiday season. So they came to the HR team that this is what they need. Now, as a consultant, you will receive those requirements either in an email or documented somewhere. It's not like you'll start a new report. You will start, but you will first search for an existing reports. Let's say some Workday delivered reports that are available for managers, which has time off details, right? You make a copy of it and then you customize it based on that requirement. So that saves you a lot of time in creating a report from scratch. But that is something which you will do once you are a little bit hands-on on the reports. Right now, most of your time will go in searching for that report because you're completely new to the reporting part of Workday. Right? So the more time you invest in going through the standard reports and just understanding what kind of output they have, for some it will make sense, for some it won't make sense. That's absolutely okay. Now, once you make a copy of it like we just did, then we come into understanding these different things, prompts, sharing, advanced filters, so on and so forth. Okay. So in our hands-on, we'll start by creating a very, very new report because that touches upon multiple concepts of reporting, which we'll discuss right now. Okay. Now, in your notes, make sure you write this the way I'm doing this. So there are three things in Workday, and all of those three are called as report writers. So that's why I'm writing it explicitly so it does not create any confusion, right? Now, one of them you already are familiar with. It's a type of standard report. Now, another report writer is a user-based security group. It's a Workday delivered security group within your system. See that here also. It's unconstrained, as you can see, because it's a user-based group. Now, if you have access to this group, that means you have the ability to do edits to reports and work with them, create them, copy them, share them. You have like an admin access. Now, the third type of report writer is your framework. Basically, the tool or the framework that you use to create reports. Now, when we made a copy of a standard report, so the framework that we look at, the edit mode that we do, that is nothing but your reporting framework or the tool that exists. So the last is the tool or the framework that is again Workday delivered, we leverage to create reports. So these are the three different types of report writers. So don't get confused. If anyone is talking about report writer, you can definitely follow them up with a question that, can you please be specific which report writer you are talking in the context? Because there's a security group, then there's a type of standard report, and then the framework or the tool. These are very critical concepts to learn reports. And this is what that takes time. Whatever we did before this, that's easy part. This is also easy, but it just takes time to understand the connection between these. So that's why I've added as a reference that data source can be thought of as a company. And these are just the analogies I'm writing product to, because sometimes when the concept is a little complex, if we learn it in reference to something, it becomes easier to have that understanding. So please write that down in your notes. Data source, PBO, your primary business object, RBO, your related business object. Another note I like you guys to have is the type of custom report that we'll be learning in the upcoming sessions, advanced, is the only type of report which allows you to use multiple data sources. Sorry, multiple business objects, not data sources, multiple business objects. Rest, no other type allows you to use multiple business objects. Only the type advanced allows you to use multiple business objects. And that is related to your related business object concept also, which we'll discuss in detail.
Can you repeat that last thing?
Sure. So advanced type is the only type which allows multiple business object usage in one report. The data is in the Workday's database, which is we use
Say
the
number
concept of data source and business objects to pull that data in your reports. Like there are integrations in which you import data from outside through an Excel sheet or through an external vendor. But that settles itself in different areas of in the database of the system, because there are the concepts of ETL. Whenever you are sending data or receiving data, there's always extract, transform, and load. So that transformation transforms the data that you're receiving in the format that Workday understands, so that it can easily store it in the database tables.